the world of corporate America and beyond. I wake up every day with two missions in mind. How do I make my bosses more money, and how do I get some of it? Very simple.
I'm out for presidents to represent me. I'm out for presidents to represent me.
Welcome to the Dark Times channel. And so here we go again, back with another one. And in this particular video, I want to take a second to chime in on an interview that Stephen A. Smith did with third-party candidate Dr. Cornell West. And I thought this was an interesting interview. You have two people that are diametrically the complete opposite of one another. You have Dr. Cornell West, who's a lifelong socialist and who has been a part of the progressive movement and has been on the side of progressiveness on all different issues. And I'm not going to get into a conversation about whether I agree with Dr. Cornell West on all of the issues, because I don't. I agree with him on some of the issues, and of course I disagree with him vehemently on a lot of other different issues, but it's besides the point. I agree with the mindset of a Cornell West.
But in the end, though, brother, it's not really about the party. It's about the people, man.
Right.
You know, you got people suffering. I don't care who they are. I don't care where they are. Barrios, ghettos, hoods, reservations, white working folks. It's a human thing. You got 1% of the population owning what now? 40% of the wealth.
Yes.
3 individuals in the country have wealth equivalent to 50% of the whole population, 160 million folk.
And then as it pertains to Stephen A. Smith, like I said, he's the diametric opposite of Cornell West. Stephen A. Smith is, like I said earlier, or like I played in the beginning of the video, he's somebody that is on record of saying that he wakes up every morning figuring out a way on how to please his bosses and how to make his bosses more money.
In the world of corporate America and beyond. I wake up every day with two missions in mind. How do I make my bosses more money, and how do I get some of it? Very simple.
And so somebody with a mindset like this is somebody that is not to be trusted in the least. Now, of course, Stephen A. Smith may say a lot of things that I agree with from time to time. A lot of things on a lot of different issues. But like I said, that's besides the point. Just because I can agree with somebody and find some commonality with them doesn't mean this is a person that is to be trusted. And the things that they say and the things that they say they stand for is to be taken with a grain of salt. Somebody that doesn't have a mindset for spiritual things and only has a mindset for carnal things and how to generate more profit and generate more revenue. Somebody like that is liable to say anything. Somebody like that is liable to do anything as long as there's a check attached to it. And so that's Stephen A. Smith to a T, and that's what he represents. And so, like I said, this is not a personal attack on Stephen A. Smith. I don't know him personally, so I have no need or no reason to want to come after him. But I think it speaks to a greater issue within society and within humanity, where you have individuals just like Stephen A. Smith that wake up every day. They wake up every single morning thinking, how can they get more money? How can I get my hands on some money? And there's nothing wrong with having things. There's nothing wrong with earning a living. There's nothing wrong with wanting the finer things in life. But if that's your sole purpose, if that's your sole purpose of existence, then you're doomed, because it's never enough and it's never going to be enough. And the people at the top know this. The elites and the people in that 1%, that 1%, they definitely know it. But I want to go ahead and play a few clips from this interview with Dr. Cornell West. And then, of course, I'll come in and chime in along the way.
You got 8 policies that you're running on, Dr. West. Let's go through a few of them as quickly as we possibly can, please, sir. You've been a harsh critic of President Joe Biden during his time as a senator. Why do you think he shouldn't be reelected as president?
Well, I think Brother Biden has been associated really with 2 ugly crimes against humanity. One is massive incarceration. Yeah, it really is. And he had about 4 of them. Both with Strom Thurmond before. And then the big crime bill of 94 is 81, it's 84, 86, 91, and then 94. And you see the impact. I've been teaching in prisons, brother, for over 40 years, man. And I love my brothers. And some of the brothers have done some things that's ugly and vicious, and they needed some time off. Others were innocent, but they're human beings. And to have them locked up in these warehouses are forms of barbarity that I cannot accept. And for him to be the architect of that, and nobody to really want to talk about the afterlife, the impact of the lives of families as well as those brothers, to me, it's just wrong. But
a lot of people have argued, wait a minute, he was willing to do it, and he had the support of various folks within the black political apparatus, because the Congressional Black Caucus were supporters of the crime bill as well, which, and his argument, if I recall correctly, if I'm wrong in any way, please correct me, sir. I'm not the aficionado that you are, but if I recall correctly, he used that as an excuse. He said, wait a minute, it's what you all were asking for because of what was transpiring within your community.
That's exactly right. You are absolutely right, though, brother. You're hitting the nail on the head. And what does that mean? That means that we had a black leadership that was so tied to the Democratic Party, they became well adjusted to injustice and well adapted to indifference toward the plight of precious brothers and sisters in the hood that became the major source of mass incarceration.
And so Dr. Cornell West is right on the money. The Congressional Black Caucus is doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is absolutely nothing. No one could point to any specific policy that the Congressional Black Caucus has had a hand in, especially as it pertains to so-called black people. You can't point to one specific policy that the Congressional Black Caucus has had a hand in that has benefited so-called black Americans. Not one. And the Congressional Black Caucus is filled with people like Stephen A. Smith, black capitalists that wake up every morning, go to bed every night thinking about how they can get their hands on more money. And that's why the scriptures tell you the root of all evil is the love of money. Not money itself, but the love of money is the root of all evil. And it's not some mystical hocus pocus kind of material. If you think about it, it's just basic common sense. If you're in love with money that much, where you're to the point where you'll do anything and say anything to get it, it's going to lead to destruction. And so that's why the scriptures tell us that the love of money is the root of all evil. And so somebody like Stephen A. Smith would fit in quite well with the Congressional Black Caucus. He'd fit right in. And Stephen A. Smith is going to be asking Dr. Cornell West one last question. And I thought it was an interesting question because Stephen A. Smith is somebody who's on record on trying to get Candace Owens on his show. So he's somebody that is going to pander. But I want you guys to pay attention to Dr. Cornell West's response. Commentators, pundits on the right that you feel that way about, that we see on TV, that you think that when we're looking at them, we should say, hey, they've got a love for their people. They just think a little bit differently than somebody like yourself?
Boy, that's a beautiful question, my brother. I've never been asked that question before. Who would be some of the right-wing folk who actually have
I asked that because I saw you again. I saw you talking to Candace Owens. So I'm thinking about...
Absolutely, because I believe in being in dialogue with everybody.
Right.
I really do. And they're human beings. And I think I can learn from everybody, no matter how wrong I think they are.
Right.
But the pundits on television...
Yeah.
I think part of the problem is, man, it's hard to get independently minded brothers and sisters of any color like yourself, because the companies tend to be able to make more money.
And so I'm not sure if you guys caught this, but what Stephen A. Smith was trying to do, he was trying to give Cornell West an alley-oop. Since Stephen A. Smith deals in sports and basketball in particular, I'm going to go ahead and use this analogy. He was trying to give Cornell West an alley-oop and be able to say a few nice things about Candace Owens in hopes that Candace Owens sees it and eventually comes on his show. But it didn't quite work out the way Stephen A. Smith planned it. I'm going to go ahead and play a small segment of what I just played because some of you guys may have missed this. There's some subtle body language that Stephen A. Smith did.
I think part of the problem is, man, it's hard to get independently minded brothers and sisters of any color like yourself, because the companies tend to be able to make more money.
If you notice, Stephen A. Smith adjust his tie right after Cornell West said that, right after he mentioned that it's hard to find people on television and that are within media that are not tied to big money corporations, in particular people like Candace Owens, who's tied to a lot of right-wing think groups and tied to a lot of right-wing organizations. So she's somebody that is definitely receiving a check to do the work that she does. Stephen A. Smith is the same way. His whole podcast is sponsored. I believe he's sponsored by FanDuel. So once again, somebody who's sponsored by major corporations. And if you're sponsored by a major corporation, there is no way you can be an independent thinker. And so Stephen A. Smith is somebody that's smart enough to know that. And he understood exactly what Cornell West was doing, which is why he adjusted his tie. Whenever you see somebody adjust themselves on a subconscious level, that's somebody who's trying to fix themselves, not trying to fix their physical appearance, but on a subconscious level, they're trying to fix what was just addressed about them personally. These are little body language nuances that you'll see an individual do if they feel like they're being attacked on a personal level, or if they feel like their image is being attacked somehow. You'll see a person adjust their tie. You'll see a person adjust their glasses. You'll see a person adjust their hair. And so I thought that Dr. Cornell West, being the intellectual savant that he is, did a masterful job at taking a shot at Stephen A. Smith and Candace Owens without having to take a shot. And so I thought that Dr. Cornell West did a masterful job, being the intellectual savant that he is, at taking a shot at Candace Owens and Stephen A. Smith without actually having to take a shot. Sometimes that's how you have to do people. Sometimes you have to use their own words and their own so-called intellectualism against them. And so somebody like Dr. Cornell West, he'd be interesting. I'd be interested to see him on the debate stage with the other candidates, just to see how it turns out and just to see what he's allowed to say and what they allow him to say. That'll be fascinating to me. It'll be must-watch TV. And at this point, it's all entertainment at the end of the day anyway. So I'll be interested to see what happens. And so I think that's going to be a wrap on this particular video. I just wanted to chime in for a second to be able to point out the difference between somebody with a self-proclaimed capitalistic mindset versus somebody with a self-proclaimed socialist mindset and a progressive mindset. And at the end of the day, nobody is to be trusted, but somebody who tells you up front that they're all about money and they're all about self and they're all about maximizing how to get the most money in this life. Off rip, that's somebody that's not to be trusted. And that's somebody who's telling you what they're all about. So when somebody tells you what they're all about, you need to listen. And so make sure you guys go ahead and chime in the comment section. And as usual, peace and chaos.